Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gamer Crafting Podcast. I am Angie and it's been a hot minute since I've been here. So as many of you know, I've been in Italy the last 2.5 weeks. Well, I got back about a week ago, but I got back on a Tuesday, which is usually when I upload, and everything was, so this is the first chance that I've had to actually put anything together since I've been back. It's been a mess of trying to catch up on emails and back orders and preparing for one in a few weeks, which if you're going to be in and around the Dublin area, do come and say hello to us. We will be there. I don't remember our stand number, so you'll find us, probably. So anyway, I've been getting a lot of questions through on social media asking why I was in Italy in the first place, if not just for a super gorgeous vacation. Yes, Italy is indeed super gorgeous. It was a bit more than that. So basically, I'm about to kind of discuss how Brexit has kind of messed things up for Sarah and I a bit with regards to immigration. It's not something that I talk about super openly a lot of the time because, I don't know, because some people, they don't really understand, and they look poorly on people who do things the way that we did them. So anyway, and also if anyone really wanted to make a lot of trouble for us, they probably could. Well, maybe they could. Basically, everything that we have done has been completely above board. But because it was EU legislation, people who don't like the EU tend to not be super favorable of the way that I live here with my wife and build a business and pay taxes. I don't know. Basically, in 2012, when our work visas in Canada were coming to an end, and they were non-renewable because they were meant just for travel, students. I think the condition of mine meant that I had to have graduated within a year. Sarah obviously had the 2-year Commonwealth country visa, but those are non-renewable, and in almost every case, you cannot convert that 1 or 2 year working visa into a longer visa unless you have someone sponsoring you, and it's quite difficult. So unfortunately at the time, Canada was not an option to stay. If it had been, then maybe we would have stayed. We probably would have stayed. So we had to make a decision. Well, in 2012, DOMA had not yet been struck down in the US. If you are unfamiliar with what DOMA is, it stands for the Defense of Marriage Act. Insert eye roll here. And the Defense of Marriage Act in the US was a federal law that said that gay couples could not, you couldn't have any federal rights with your gay marriage, even if you had been married in a state that allowed gay marriage. So among federal rights are things like military pensions, space pensions, which is why Sally Ride, first woman in space, her partner was without a pension for a long time, until DOMA was struck down. It meant things like property rights, all this kind of higher level stuff. You couldn't have it. And the thing on the list that affected us was immigration. If you were a married gay couple, you could not sponsor your non-US spouse for immigration. No bones about it, no financial restrictions, no extra paperwork. You couldn't. End of sentence, you can't. So that has been stricken down now, but at the time, it hadn't been. So we didn't even have the choice of moving to the US. If we had the choice, I don't know. Who knows where we'd be right now? Who knows where life may have taken us? But the fact is that it wasn't an option then, and we live here now, and the US doesn't really feel like a super viable option at this point with the way that rights are being stripped from LGBT people. It doesn't feel like something I want to voluntarily opt into. So we wanted to move. Well, we had to move to the UK. We wanted to stay together, which obviously we did. We were married at that point. So we had to move to the UK. And there's a lot of, and in 2012, the year that DOMA was struck down, there was new immigration restrictions put in line for sponsoring non-EU spouses in the UK, which raised the financial threshold by, I don't know, it was a significant jump. It went from something that seemed possibly attainable to something that felt impossible. It may have well been, £1 million or something. Especially when you've been out of the country for 2 years working in another country, and before that you were kind of fresh out of uni, it's going to be difficult to get these jobs with these higher pensions, especially because that was kind of still coming out of the big recession, so a lot of companies weren't really hiring that much. Anyway, point is, I was in the UK for 6 months on a visitor visa, which is allowed, and as I was coming to the end of my visitor visa, we didn't really know what we were going to do. It seemed like the only option was that I was going to have to move back to the States, and we'd have to try and figure something out, but until we figured something out, that we would have to be separated. Which, I don't know, that's not super great. I know that some people, they're fine with having really long separations with their spouses, like people whose spouses are in the military and stuff. My imaginary hat is off to you, because we were long distance for a year, and it sucked. It was not great. I mean, we made it work, obviously, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do, especially not with a definitive end date. I really didn't want to opt into something that was going to be like, oh yeah, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before you're able to see each other again. Because here's the other kicker: when you're married to somebody who's not the citizen of the same country as you, they're going to get grilled every time they go through immigration, and they're going to get pulled off to the side every time they go through immigration if they say, my wife is American and I'm here to visit her, because they're thinking that you're there to stay illegally, and you have to prove 8 ways from Sunday that you're not trying to stay. So you have to have a return ticket, you have to have references back there, they can pull all kinds of BS, and it would have been the same if I was coming to the UK. Border guards, not super friendly if you're I'm here to see my wife, but I don't have a valid visa to stay here, because... So, we were up against something really stressful, and we didn't really know what we were going to do. And then we learned about something called the Surinder Singh route. So this was a decision back in the 90s, and I don't know the super hyper specifics of everything. I know that it involved a man who lived in Germany and was married, and then anyway, I think the man wasn't from the EU. But his wife was from Germany. And anyway, I don't know the super specifics of everything, but basically it says that if you go and you live in a different EU country and you establish residence there, and then you come back to your country of origin, you have to be considered as your EU residency rather than your citizenship. So within the EU, EU citizens are allowed to move to another EU state and sponsor their EU spouses with relatively little drama. You have to get a job. It doesn't really have a financial threshold. And, that's kind of it. It's not really a super crazy thing. It is different, however, if you're an EU. So here, in the UK, there's these financial thresholds and tons of paperwork and expensive and tests and everything if I wanted to stay here with Sarah just being a UK citizen. Okay, so we moved. I know this is confusing. We moved to Ireland. We moved to Dublin for 6 months, and Sarah worked there, and I was doing freelance stuff back in the US. Nobody would hire me in Ireland because I don't know. Anyway, so we lived and worked there for 6 months. We established residency. I still have my Irish residency card. And then we came back to the UK and filed our application for residency via the Surinder Singh route. Filled out miles of paperwork. The folder we sent off was like this. They sent it back initially saying you didn't fill out the payment page when it was highlighted and had a sticky note on it that said payment page. So we had to send it back again and be like, we did include the payment page. Don't know what to tell you. So, and then they rejected us, and they said that we hadn't established, and they basically didn't believe that we were in Ireland long enough to establish residency, even though we had included our residency cards. I don't know. It was a whole big thing. We had to file an emergency appeal. They threatened to deport me. They kept my passport, something I still have nightmares about. And they said they wouldn't give it back until I was getting on a plane out of the country. And it was all very hostile and stressful, probably like the most stressful period in my life. And eventually we got a mysterious letter in the mail that was like, oh, if you drop your appeal, we'll reconsider your case. I finally got an internal number. And they basically said that the EU was passing down legislation that said if somebody's a resident, you absolutely cannot, under any circumstances, like reject an application for residency, whereas before they were trying to go through loopholes to deny people. So that's how I live here in the UK with my wife, where I've built a business and pay taxes. I'm going to keep saying that because a lot of people seem to think that, I don't know, that all immigrants are, you know, stealing jobs. Like, I made myself a job. You know, I happily pay my taxes. You know, I just, ugh. So yeah, when there's like a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment, it does get to you. Even though, according to a lot of people, I'm the right kind of immigrant, which is just gross. Not gonna, no. So anyway, so that's how I live in the UK. And you start off with a 5-year, in my passport, it's a 5-year visa. And then after 5 years, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain. You cannot apply for indefinite leave to remain before the 5 years are up. You're not allowed to, which is also frustrating. So given all the stuff that's going on with Brexit, deal, no deal, hard Brexit, freedom of movement, not, like, that's stressful. If they, you know, and I know people are like, oh no, you'll be fine, there'll be a grace period. They didn't handle our application correctly the first time. I'm not, like, super confident that in the midst of tons of upheaval that we'd be treated fairly. I don't know. I'm super nervous about putting all this out there on the internet. To be fair, I don't want them to like show up at my door and kick me out, which seems like a thing that could totally happen. So anyway, so it's been really stressful. And then about, it might have been almost a year ago now, I'm not actually sure, my parents asked me if I would be interested in obtaining Italian citizenship via, it's called jure sanguinis. It's basically through ancestry, through bloodline. My dad's father was from Italy, and his mother's parents were from Italy as well. So basically like full Italian on that side of the family, like no one's anything but. So which means I'm basically like half Italian or whatever. If you want to go through like American standards of I'm this percent this, which doesn't really apply for anything else. The point is that previous to 1948, I think, you could only go through the father's side because patriarchal norms. But my dad's father was a naturalized U.S. citizen before my dad was born, which is just like a thing that happened. It wasn't necessarily something that they like, I renounce my Italian citizenship. It just like happened. And this is another one of those weird things that happens in immigration that really screws a lot of people over. Anyway, so he discovered that he would be able to go through his mom's side, so his mother's parents. If it had been any further out than that, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So this process is like complex. There's tons of like proof and paperwork that you have to come up with proving who lived where and when and for how long and their kids and where they were and names. Birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates, like just so much. So they hired a firm to do all of this work for them, which was a big difference for me personally because I've dealt with my own immigration stuff in Canada when I was there for my 1-year visa. I still had to go and obtain the visa, and then I had to get my like Canadian, it's like a Canadian national insurance number. I can't remember the name of it. Or Social Security if you're in the US. It was something like that. I can't remember the name of it is though. And then in Ireland we had to do immigration stuff, fill out tons of paperwork and apply for Irish residency and everything. And then in the UK, so like I had to do all of that, all the research and all the paperwork and everything myself, which is arduous to say the least. Is very time consuming, and there are places that you can hire, but they are expensive. Anyway, the firms that do this kind of work are expensive. So anyway, it was a difference for me to not be the one to have to be like chasing up all of the paperwork and all of the this and all of the that. So that was a difference for me. And we thought we might go in October, but then something got delayed, and so we ended up going in May, so this month. And basically the thing is that you go and you live in a small town in Italy, and you establish residency and all this kind of stuff. So when we went, we weren't staying in like, luxury digs or even necessarily like a really nice Airbnb. It was a house that no one was living in, and there was beds and a kitchen and a bathroom. And that was kind of it. And obviously, like, this was taken, not quite right outside the door, but it was like up a path a bit. So, I mean, the scenery kind of makes up for the, maybe lack of incidentals, but that kind of thing doesn't really bother me anyway. I mean, we go camping a lot and that sort of thing, so I'm pretty chill with all that kind of stuff. Washed my clothes in a sink for a couple weeks. It's all good. So anyway, I was going to kind of take you on a mini tour of what I was doing while I was there. I can't show you every picture because there's like 500 of them, and we'd be here for for a good few hours while I talk to you through the intricacies of each picture. Also, there's a lot of really bad selfies in there, so no, when I say bad selfies, I don't mean that I looked bad. I mean, like, there's, like, a lens flare, or it's, like, off-center. Yeah, like, technically bad, not, body image bad. So, yeah, I guess I would just kind of show you what I did while I was there. I will say that now that I've gone and I've done all this stuff in Italy, I won't have my actual Italian citizenship for, like, 6 to 10 or 12 months. And once I get that, I have to go back to Italy for another 2 weeks. And I have to get my Italian ID and apply for a passport. So, like, this is not something that's going to immediately shield us from whatever crazy thing happens in October with Brexit. But it does mean that even if the absolute worst happens, we will be shielded a bit from it. And once I have that Italian passport, we can move to another EU country without a lot of drama. And it gives us a lot more options and insulation. And, yeah, so... I just wanted to point out that it's not an easy fix. It's an expensive, slow fix. So yeah, I will kind of show you what happened while I was there, I guess, via pictures that I took on my cell phone. Right, so the first night that I landed in Italy, I went in the day before my parents arrived because they were coming from Chicago, and so they were going to be landing at the big international airport, whereas most flights that go from here, because they're more frequent and it's closer, went to the smaller airport, and it's kind of a pain to get from one airport to the other, so I decided to just go in the day before, crash at a hotel near the airport they'd be landing at the next morning, and just go to meet them. So I looked out my window, it's the balcony for the small hotel room that I was in, and these 3 flags were like right outside my window, and it just felt like weirdly appropriate. So you have the EU flag there, sorry, it's backwards, the EU flag, American flag, Italian flag, which kind of felt to me like really symbolic, because obviously the EU is something that means a lot to me because I live here thanks to the EU. Wouldn't be allowed to live here otherwise. So yeah, and it's what's going to hopefully, keep a lot of options open for us, even if the worst happens, which I really hope it doesn't, for a lot of reasons. It's going to do a lot of bad things to people, and it's just not great economically and socially, and I won't go into all those reasons now, but y'all know how I feel about that. Anyway, it just felt, yeah, it's kind of how it felt. Plus there's like a nice sunset and stuff. So what's this? All right, so this painting my mom and I did. So we were staying in Campobasso, which is in the region of Molise, which is the second smallest, I think, or one of the smallest, and it's also like the second most impoverished regions in Italy. It used to be Abruzzo e Molise, but now it's just Molise. It's been like that for like 60 years or something. Anyway, my mom paints as well. So I brought all my watercolor stuff. It was like half my suitcase watercolor paints, and we decided to do some painting each day. But I like this one. Took a picture of them side by side. My mom's is the one backwards. backwards. So this one is my mom's, and the rotund bird is mine. So yeah, it's when we were, I think that was the first night that we were staying in Campobasso, which is, it's a fun town. I've never been south of Rome before, so this was the first time that I've been sort of like central southern Italy. Right, so the Monday morning, we had our orientation with the other members of our group. There was so it was us, and there was a few other couples that were there, and we were put into groups in order to do all the different the different things that had to get done while we were there to establish residency, and so on and so forth, and activities and so on and so forth. So I'm sitting there. Sorry. So I'm sitting there in this meeting, and they're talking about like the legal intricacies, which I won't bore you with here, don't worry, any more than I already have, right? So they're talking about the legal intricacies and how this all works and how long it's been around and everything that we're going to have to do in order to establish residency and make our applications and then come back, ID cards, passports, so on and so forth. And I look down and I realize that there is a stitch laddering itself up my Sunset Highway towards the hem. Where did this stitch even come from? Like, I'm still looking at it, and I'm still like, I don't understand. Like, when did this happen? I don't know if I couldn't see any, like, broken yarn, though. And I've worn this, like, probably a dozen or 2 dozen times, so it can't be from when I initially knitted it. I don't think. I mean, I've washed it since then. Who knows? And so I look down, and I'm like, oh my god. Like, I don't have a crochet hook with me. I don't even have my knitting with me. I'm literally just sitting there with, like, my passport, my wallet and my phone, basically. And so I pulled a bobby pin out of my hair to like catch the stitch and sort of tuck it inside. I was able to fix it later, but it was just this moment of like, oh my god, where did this come from and why? Also, I almost didn't take my Sunset Highway with me. I threw it in my bag literally at the last second as I was closing the suitcase, thinking, I'm going to southern Italy. I've been to Italy before. It's warm there, which I am not a huge fan of warm weather. I get headaches. I feel uncomfortable. I sweat a lot. It's not great. I'm an ice queen. So anyway, I just, I don't know. I didn't think I was going to ever use it, but I was like, well, I guess if anyone asks me, about my knitting or whatever. So I threw it in, and it ended up being cold and rainy like almost the whole time we were there, so I'm really glad that I threw it in my suitcase. So yeah, I did fix it though, don't worry. So this was a nighttime shot of the place we were staying. Was called Castel Pizzuto. It's really small. There's 100 people that live there, and only 10 of them are under the age 18. Most of them are more elderly folks, and it's kind of like there's not really any work around there, so people, like, they grow up and they move away and they don't come back because there's no reason to. So the mayor of this town, her name is Carla. I want to be Carla when I grow up. She is so rad. She is so cool. Basically, she's been the mayor there for 10 months, I think, and she's undertaken this mission to try and get parts of the area around Castel Pizzuto added to the national park that's nearby. And she's had geologists and researchers and paleontologists and stuff, not paleontologists, archaeologists come in and stuff. There's no dinosaurs there as far as I'm aware. To come in and do ecological impact studies and archaeological studies, historical. Anyway, she's totally rad. But this was outside the house we were staying at, kind of at night at sunset. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear loads of outside noise. It's too warm to have all the windows closed, so you're probably going to hear people driving by. Sorry. This is a nice picture. This was when we were driving. All right, so Castel Pizzuto is at like on this mountain, and the road literally dead ends into the town. It doesn't go anywhere other than Castel Pizzuto. So if you want, and there was no shops or anything in the town. There's nowhere to get food. There was no restaurants. There was nothing. No shops at all in Castel Pizzuto. So if you wanted to get anything, if you wanted to get dinner or a snack, or you wanted to get some food or toothpaste or whatever, you'd have to drive down to the next town down the mountain, which is called Longano. And this was on the drive down to Lungano. It was pretty, like I said, it was pretty chilly and rainy, so there was still some snow up in the mountains, which is really rare for this time of year, typically in that area. It's a nice picture, though. This was by far, I'm going to move out of the way so you can see this. This was by far my favorite food picture that I took the entire time that I was there. These are cannolis, if you're not familiar. Cannolis are an Italian sort of pastry dessert. That wrap that's around the outside is it's crunchy, and then the filling is like usually like ricotta and mascarpone, and then like sugar, and then you can either have like, I don't know, there's like a million different ways to garnish them. These are with pistachios, which are my classical favorite. But just look, on like the plate and everything, I that was at a place, I don't know if that pasticceria, which is like a bakery, I don't know if that's actually in the town Frosolone, but it's nearby if it's not in there. It's a good thing that I don't live across the street from this pasticceria, because they'd have to like lock their doors when they saw me coming, because I would just buy everything and eat it all. It was so beautiful, and these cannolis have created like a new bar for cannoli appreciation in my life. No lie. They were god tier cannolis. Yeah, like just looking at them makes me want them again. Because a lot of times if you get cannolis, you know, in a restaurant or something, they've been pre-filled and then they get stale. Like the casings, they're not as crunchy, and then you sort of lose that texture. I don't know, I'm talking too much about cannolis now. It's my favorite food picture that I took, and I took probably almost half the pictures that I took were food pictures. But I mean, how can you not when you're being fed this amazingly delicious stuff? Right, so we went to go see a man who makes knives by hand. His name is Rocco, and I bought some scissors. I didn't think to bring them to my desk with me, but I bought some like embroidery scissors, because I didn't think they were going to let me back on the plane with like an actual knife. So I just wanted to show you like this video, I guess. I'll try and move out of the way. Okay, here we go. This is when he was sanding the handle. I don't know if this has any sound. No, I don't think it does. So yeah, he's using like this big sandy belt to, yeah. Oh wow, that's some excellent camera work there, Angie. Well done. So yeah, he does all this by hand. I think that's an olive wood one he's working with there. He does all these by hand. He also does like hand forged stuff, but he's like one of the last ones in the region. It's him and one other guy who's, you know, in his 90s. It was really interesting, though, to kind of see the amount of effort and work that goes into making really good knives. It definitely makes you think twice about mass-produced knives that don't stay sharp as long or can't be sharpened, etc. That is the thing that was kind of the undercurrent of the theme the entire time we were there, was this kind of mood of like sustainability and shopping small and local and this kind of thing. And the thing is in Molise, it's more normal there than it is other places. Not necessarily because they're super ahead of the curve with regards to green initiatives. It's more just because it's cultural. It's embedded into their cultural way of being, that things have always been more local. It's not uncommon for a family to be like, yeah, we've got chickens and a pig, and, you know, once a year we have the pig slaughtered and we use the meat for the rest of the year, and, you know, they use every bit of everything. And it's just more embedded into the culture there for everything to be super local. I think every place that we ended up eating, they were like, yeah, we mill our own flour, or the flour is milled by our neighbors. You know, it's like, that's how local it is, which is wild to me, somebody who grew up in the US where everything is, you know, pre-packed and whatever, in the UK, which is, you know, largely the same for the most part. It was just wild to me. Yeah, I know a guy who makes knives, you know, I'll hook you up. Madness. So while we were there, one of the things that we had to do for our citizenship like requirements was kind of become kind of involved with the local economy and involved with the local way of life. And so the mayor, Carla, took us on a walk around Castel Pizzuto. Like I said, it's a really old town and not many people live there. So a lot of these houses are just like, they're just abandoned. They're just chilling there. Like, the people who own them live in, like, it's like descendants of Italians who left 100 years ago, and they live in, you know, Argentina or, you know, or in America, like these far-flung places, and people, you know, they're like, I'm not gonna, you know, anyway. But I took a picture of this particular because those shingles are made of shale or of slate. I don't remember which, slate or shale. And the mayor was saying, nobody knows how to make these roofs anymore. Obviously, they're really heavy. It's literally made out of rocks. But that cultural understanding has kind of died out, and it's a real shame that nobody knows how to do this anymore. Nobody knows how to do it anymore. And they can't really, like, they've tried to reverse engineer it without loads of success. So that's just a piece of history that's just kind of like, poof, it's gone. No one knows how to do it. So I guess it's a rousing endorsement for getting people to write things down, or, you know, I mean, because we don't really have a need for, like, rock roofing at this point in life, really. I mean, you never know what's going to happen that might make us have to rely on rock roofing, but, you know, it's a piece of cultural history that's gone. This is the background that I'm using today that I took on that walk. So I took this picture. I know it seems a little bit over dramatic, but so there was the fencing. It's basically to keep animals from going over the side of the cliff that was on the other side. But to me, I was like, I don't know, I just felt like, you know, there's this beautiful landscape, this beautiful Italian landscape in the background, and then barbed wire kind of represents, like, the, you know, all the money that it takes to do this. First of all, I wouldn't have been able to afford to do it on my own. No way. Tacking onto my dad is the only way that I would have been able to go through this route. And I also wouldn't have been able to do it if he hadn't, because he's going through his grandparents. You cannot go through great-grandparents, I don't think. So, wouldn't have been able to. So it's like, you know, the money and the cost and the paperwork and the requirements and everything. And I kind of feel like that with immigration everywhere. Like, it's so focused on keeping people out. It just feels really cruel and unnecessary. People are just people. We don't look sideways at birds that migrate over hundreds and thousands of miles. We're like, oh, that's normal. And yet, if people want to migrate somewhere else, it's like, oh, no, you should just stay wherever you started. I don't know. It's gross. Not into it. So that's my bougie artistic photo. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this picture. Let me get my head out. I can't figure out the best way to go. Okay. So we had a pizza making thing where we went to a nearby town called Pesce, and we learned how to make pizza in this tiny pizza kitchen with a 400 degrees Celsius brick oven. 400 Celsius, not Fahrenheit. This oven was hot. The pizzas cook in a minute. That's not a lie. 1 minute, pizza done. Which kind of gives you annoyed feelings about when you buy a frozen pizza, right? And you have to wait 20 minutes for it to be done. No, 1 minute. One. So anyway, we got to make pizza. Again, this place, flour, all super local flour and milled, and the way that they do their pizza dough is different from anywhere else. They let it cure, I guess, for like 4 days, which is kind of unheard of for pizzerias and stuff. They're really nice there. So I think it was my mom who took this picture. I'm pretty sure it was her that I thrust my phone at, being like, here, take pictures. So obviously I don't look super awesome in this picture, according to society. I'm like hunched over, you know, I look hot. It was hot in the kitchen. But you know what? I was having a blast. So I've been really trying to look at this picture where you can see my belly rolls on the side and not like focus on the focus on the fact that I feel like I look bad according to society, or that I look, you know, whatever. But try to be like, look how much freaking fun I'm having in this picture. I was having a blast because, you know what, I threw a pizza thing in the air and I didn't drop it on the ground, which I definitely thought I was going to. I am not known for my grace. We're known for my clumsiness. So they were like, yeah, throw it in the air. I was like, oh god, like I'm definitely gonna drop this whole ass pizza on the floor and have to start over and have everyone be like. So that was me catching the pizza and being thrilled that I hadn't embarrassed myself by dropping an entire pizza on the ground. An entire wet, doughy pizza on the ground that we would have to, like, scrape up off the floor. This was one of the pizzas. Sorry, I know that there's not, like, a lot of surface area here. So this is one of the pizzas that they served us. It's a potato pizza. I know that sounds weird. And you're also probably wondering what the purple stuff is. They used purple potatoes, which, if you come to our Saturday night live streams where we have potato facts, we've talked about the purple potatoes before. But they make like a puree with the potatoes, and then there's, I think there was ham or something on the top. There was a very pork-focused food economy, which is very different for me because we don't eat loads of meat, and we certainly don't eat loads of pork, so it was like, wow, this is like a year's worth, probably more, of what I would usually eat of pork at home. But like I said, it's different because you're not talking about industrial level farms that are doing all the harm to the environment. You're talking about, there's, a farmer down the road who's got a few pigs and he sells the excess to local restaurants. So like, it's just a different food economy. It is more sustainable and better for the environment, but it was still like kind of a shock to be eating that much meat for me. But yeah, potato pizza, good stuff. This, I don't remember. I think this was the next day. I don't remember where that place was. It was they have things in Italy called agriturismos. Agriturismos are like small farm-to-table restaurants or B&Bs. But the point is that everything's farm to table. So everything that they serve you there will have been from that farm. So this place that we went, we learned how to make pasta. Like the flour was from there, and the tomatoes were from there, and everything was from there. And, the honey that they gave us at the end were from the beehives out back. Everything is farm to table. So this was nearby there. That's a plane flying overhead. Okay. So, everything's farm to table, and then after we went to this kind of derelict castle that was nearby, but I can't remember the name of it. So, if you were one of the people that were there and you remember the name of it, do let me know. But this is kind of how high up we are, that if it's cloudy, you're in the cloud. Which is delightfully, not spooky, but it's got kind of that, kind of a vibe to it. Big mood. So I'm like literally covering my face. So this was probably not the best way to set this up. Oh well. So we ended up going on this hike with the mayor. She wanted to show us some of the geological oddities nearby Castel Pizzuto, and so we were doing this hike, and it was like, I don't know, 30 minutes of ascended walking. And then we get to this part, and they're like, oh, we're going to go up this other part. And it was really steep. And I did it, and it was fine. But, like, my face, as you can see in the picture, is super red. And everyone's like, you okay? And I was like, yes. My face just does this. If I'm hot at all, or even moving at all, like, my face just gets super red. I know it doesn't look like it on camera. It's because I bumped up the brightness. Anyway, so, yeah. Big hike. There was a salamander. Oh yeah, and there's like this cave at the top, and they said that the cave used to be much bigger, but due to climate change, it doesn't rain as much, which is funny because it rained like the whole time that we were there, but on the whole, it doesn't rain as much. And so erosion has kind of, or not erosion, the opposite of erosion, sedimentation maybe. But the cave used to be big enough that you could kind of like go in and like take pictures and stuff, but it's like almost too small for that now. I didn't get too close to it because I was like, it's big enough that you could probably get your, like, the upper half of your body in, but they were like, yeah, there's a big drop-off in there, and we don't know where it is. And me being accident-prone, I was like, I'm not testing fate. I'm not gonna be the one that they have to call, like, Italian mountain rescue to come drag my ass out of some cave that I've fallen into, like, the descent. No. So I was like, I'll take a picture from over here. So this was on the way back down from the cave. We went down a different way. There's all these like tiny waterfalls, and stuff. I wonder if I can do this. Right. Yeah. Really relaxing. Also people talking. I tried to like wait until people weren't talking, but people were always talking, so it just didn't happen like that. I'm not sure who was talking in that one. It was probably either my dad or the mayor. Yeah, like tons of these really pretty small waterfalls, and look how clear the water is. The water is super clear. They said that it's not drinkable because that's water that comes down through the mountains, and so it can pick up impurities on the way, rather than the spring-fed waters, which you can find up in the mountains that are drinkable. I mean, if you boiled it or added iodine or that kind of thing, it would probably be fine, but you can't just like grab yourself a cup and have some, because you might end up with, I don't know, like amoebic dysentery or something. That's a joke. Amoebic dysentery, I'm pretty sure, only comes from stagnant waters, which these obviously aren't, but you don't know if a sheep is upstream like having a wee. Right, here's another video. So we went to a cheese making farm, and there was this dog, his name is Tom, who brought us a brick when we got out of the car. Like, we were going to throw the brick for him, and I was like, I'm not going to throw a brick, buddy. Like, I was like, I know you have toys. Obviously just a dog that's just like, I can find anything to play with. And so we did play. Very slightly. His name's Tom. There was another dog named Jerry. And, yeah. Doggos. So many doggos. So this was outside. Oh no, this was... I've skipped a bunch of days. Like I said, I can't show you all the pictures because we'd be here for 5 hours while I discussed the intricacies of pasta making, etc. I did learn how to make pasta, though. It was easier. Not like easier, but... I don't know. Maybe I'll attempt it. It's not going to be as good, though, obviously. Like, because they roll the pasta dough out so much and get it so light and smooth. I just know that I'm not going to have the patience for it. And I'll be like, yep, this chunky rough pasta is fine. And then eat it and be like, no, it's a bit disappointing. This was, there's a place called Monte Cassino that we went to. It's like a big abbey on the top of a mountain. It was the site of a big World War II. It was like a big World War II stronghold that the Axis powers had, and then the Allies came to take it over and like bombed the bejesus out of it, and it's been rebuilt like 5 or 6 times because it is on top of a mountain. Like invading forces, whether in 201 AD or 1943 or whatever it was, it's a what's what I'm looking for. It's a good place to be. If you're trying to like keep an eye on everything that's going around, because you can see things for miles, obviously, as you can see. So yeah, it's been rebuilt like a million times. There's a cool museum there. Probably could have spent like an extra few days at the museum. It's really pretty. The views are really pretty, and we actually had a nice day that day. So and then this was so after I don't have any photos of the signing ceremony because I couldn't get them off of my phone. For some reason, it was being a pest this morning, and I gave up. I'm sure I'll figure out eventually, but because somebody had sent them to me. So there were pictures taken, but I don't have them on my phone to show you. But also the signing ceremony, I'm just like crying in all of them. So I'll be like, and here's another picture of me like with a puffy face and crying. Like I was like so overwhelmed by the experience that one of the translators like went to his backpack and pulled out like a whole like package of tissues, and he was like, do you need these? And I was like, yes, thank you. It was definitely overwhelming, like signing because basically the papers that we signed were like the official, like, I assert that all of my documentation is correct, and like requesting the Italian government to officially recognize your citizenship, which once they do is like backdated to your birth, because the whole basis of the law is that you're like accidentally not Italian. So like it's through no fault of my own that I'm not Italian, which is a bizarre way to word things, but whatever. But my dad was, emotional and saying that he felt like his dad was there, who I never met because his dad died when my dad was still pretty young. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just emotional, and knowing that we're gonna, obviously it's gonna take at least another year to have that security because things move slowly, but because basically they have to go through every consulate I've ever lived and be like, did she renounce Italian citizenship? And obviously all the consulates will be like, we don't know who this person is. But they still have to do it, and it still takes time, and it depends on how long the consulates take to get back to them, so there's a lot of who knows how long it's going to be, really. So, anyway, my point is, like, even though it's going to be another year or year and a half before I actually have an Italian passport in my hand that I can functionally use to move about the other countries in the EU and possibly live there. It was just knowing that there's going to be that cushion at the end of it, that even if the worst happens in October and they're like, yep, hard Brexit, we're ending freedom of movement, they deny my indefinite leave to remain, which at this point I'm thinking is probably gonna happen given what happened the first time. So and you know, and at that point it's going to be like, well, you know, do we really want to stay here someplace that's constantly trying to get rid of me, even though, as stated, I live here with my wife and I have built a business and pay taxes? Shrug again. But you know, it's fine, I can move somewhere else and pay taxes there if I'm really not wanted. And I know a bunch of you are going to come in the comments and say, no, we do want you. And I do really appreciate that support. What you can do for me is you can vote. I know that we just had the European elections. And I know a lot of you will have voted. But yeah, if there's a general election called soon, which is seeming increasingly likely, then, you know, vote for, I don't know, vote strategically. I don't know the places that you live and the intricacies of everything. But, you know, vote. That's all I can say. If you don't want to see all of your immigrant friends get checked out, then you can vote. Anyway, so I don't have any photos of the signing ceremony because I couldn't get them off my phone, but rest assured I'm crying in all of them. And was like crying most of the rest of the day, would just like spontaneously burst into tears. Which is not really like a thing that I do, but it was such an overwhelming thing that, yeah, I don't know. Human brains. So, I will say that after we had the signing ceremony, the mayor was like, come up the hill to this family who they have sheep and they make cheese. And I watched a woman make cheese in a cauldron over a wood fire. I was like, that is next level. I will also say that it was then that I learned that they were the family with I think they have like a few dozen sheep. This place that we were staying, I heard this because there was, right, backtracking a bit here. Stay with me. There was, because we were kind of like at the top end of the road, like it was, nobody ever really drove past the house that we were at. And there was one morning and I heard somebody driving down the road, like beeping furiously. And I was like, is this their like early alert, like weather system or something? Because there was no service either. There was no cell phone service. There was no bars. There was no Wi-Fi. There was nothing. I was basically totally isolated when I was there, except when we drove down to the other places. Sometimes on the Autostrada, I could get a little bit of internet to try and catch up with things. Furiously trying to upload a few pictures on Instagram, but for the most part I wasn't around. So if you were like, why is she not replying to my email? And that's why, I couldn't get into him. Anyway, and so I stuck my head outside and there were sheep like literally running down the road past the house we were in. And I went outside to say hello to the sheep. The sheep had a guard dog who didn't look super impressed at my presence. Not like it was going to bite me or anything. He just looked like he was going to bark at me a lot. And I was like, well, he's just doing his job, really, so I'll leave the sheep alone. I thought I had pictures of that on my phone, for sure. Maybe those got stuck into a weird, different folder. I don't know. I did get a short video of the sheep, but okay. I'll try and find the sheep video and insert it right here, if I can. Oh my god, look at this sheep. I can't actually tell if it's taking video or not. Yeah, a whole bunch of sheep just like ran down the road with a car behind them. Anyway, so after the signing ceremony, the next day we went to Monte Cassino after the signing ceremony. Yeah, I did say I was going to backtrack a bit. And then the next day after that, we toured a water bottling plant, which is in Castel Pizzuto. And you might be thinking, water bottling plant? Like, surely that employs loads of people. There was like 5 people there. So they I don't remember how many they said that they bottle a day. Tons of water they bottle a day. And there was like maybe 5 people there. Like a couple of people to keep an eye on things, an engineer guy to fix things, and like boss. That's kind of it. And then like somebody to drive the forklift. Doesn't actually, because everything is so automated, they don't need it. They don't need tons of workers. Anyway, and then we drove up towards Bologna, and about 100 kilometers south of Bologna, I met up with Woolly Wormhead, if you know who she is. If you don't, then you should. She makes excellent hat patterns. Met up with Woolly Wormhead, who lives in kind of like an artist collective outside of a place called Sant'Arcangelo, which is where this picture is from when they were showing me around. Anyway, so my parents dropped me off there, and they carried on to Bologna, and then they went up to northern Italy, where my dad's family is, to kind of hang out with them. I didn't really have the time to spend the extra 2 weeks there, so I had to come back, especially with Woolen rapidly approaching. Like, I literally have yarn on the burners behind the green screen. Anyway, so that's where they went. But anyway, so this is Sant'Arcangelo, which is where which is kind of near where Woolly Wormhead lives, and it was really cool to see that area, because it is a lot more sort of, I don't know, like, it's just different. Like, the regions are different the same way regions are different here in the UK or in the US. It's not really like, it's not a monoculture, is what I'm saying. And I think a lot of times when you're looking at another country, it's easy to kind of boil down into a monoculture, but very few places are actually like that, if anywhere. So yeah, this was outside sort of the artist collective where Woolly lives, and this I took a picture of this because it reminded me of Horizon Zero Dawn, if you've played that game, which is rad. It is a super cool game with a female protagonist who's fully clothed, which, you know, can't find all those tick boxes all that often in a AAA game. What else do I have pictures of? Is that the last one? That's the last one. Okay. That's the last one that I have in the folder. So, okay. So yeah, that's basically the Italy trip boiled down to a very concentrated thing. I will say I am a bit annoyed that, like, Willie and I were having so much fun, like, talking and knitting and looking around, and we went to a button museum where there was, like, a cave underneath and stuff. Forgot to get any pictures of us actually in the same frame. So, well done me for that. I did get to see a sneak peek of the new stuff that she's working on, though, and it's rad. It's so cool. I think she said she's releasing the collection in September, so keep your eyes open for that. I wanted to do a quick couple of segments. I know that I'm kind of rambling on here a lot. I wanted to do a quick couple of segments to kind of catch you up. So, segment 1 is behind the scenes. Shop talk. So, obviously, I've been talking about it a bit already, but we're preparing for Woolen, which is in June, so it's in a couple of weeks, in Dublin, and trying to get stuff. I did a bunch of stuff before I left for Italy, but I'm trying to get stuff done now. I'm trying to get clubs and that dyed before we go, because we are spending a week in Ireland after Woolen, because the ferry is so expensive to get over there that I have to, like, justify it with with, like, spending a bit more time over there than just doing a show and coming straight back. So yeah, so I'm trying to kind of work ahead a bit for next month. I just got a big yarn delivery this morning. I've got some yak sock in the pan. Snow yarn being boiled. What else do I have going on? I'm working on re-dyeing some semi-solids to bring to Woolen, some of the neons, and I'll be packing up the rest of the yarn loots. I did a couple of yarn loots, and the thing is like, they sell out so fast, they never even get past the newsletter. Within like 30 minutes, they're gone. So if you want a chance to get a yarn loot, do sign up to the newsletter. We won't be doing any for a little while now, as we are clearing out of things. But if you want a chance to get on the next one, then join the newsletter. There's a link on the website. If you're wondering what a yarn loot is, it's basically a way that we clear out like stuff that's taking up too much space, really. We only have a 1-bedroom flat, and there's just yarn everywhere. So sometimes there comes a time where I'm like, yikes, I don't have any room for anything new because, you know, too much yarn. So what we do is a yarn loot, and with a yarn loot, you'll definitely get at least 100 grams of yarn, but you could get up to 300 grams. We randomly choose who gets the extras. So yeah, yarn loot, but they sell really fast, so don't go looking for them, because they're gone. They are gone. They're gone as of like 30 minutes after I sent the email. So we'll be packing those up and sending clubs out, and we have had some issues with posts lately, with stuff getting lost, which is really unusual, and I don't know what's going on either at our local place or at the regional sorting facility. I don't know. So do be patient as we sort of think about how we're going to deal with that. I think what we're going to have to do is start sending everything tracked, because otherwise things just, like, I don't know, things have been going missing, which is rare and odd, and usually only happens around Christmas, so don't know what's going on there. So I think we're going to start sending everything tracked, which is another... Anyway, it's a process. But anyway, yeah, so just kind of be patient as I continue catching up. Just about caught up. We've raised a bunch of money for Mermaids, which is the charity in the UK that helps transgender youth and their families. We've raised, I have to retally, at least £300, maybe a bit more. So we've raised a bunch of money for them. We're putting together a video with more specifics about that, and we're taking the rest of the pins to Woolin. The ones that are on the website, there's only a few left. We do have them, though. If you wanted to order them, we'd send them out before we go. And we'll take the rest of them to Woolin, and whatever doesn't fly away at Woolin, we'll put back on the website. So that's what's going on with pins and charity initiatives. Right. So while I was gone, obviously, I was kind of out of touch with things because I had no internet, so I was kind of like news blind for a while, which was weird because obviously everything, I don't know. Anyway, it felt strange. So I was trying to catch up on everything when I got back. And man, the US needs to stop. With all the laws against bodily autonomy and everything. It's not feasible for society to continue in that direction, because all it's going to do is going to hurt women and people with uteruses and female reproductive organs and everything. It's just not great. So I'm going to be doing a charity, another charity initiative. I'm going to dye up the prototypes of the yarn. Probably today, probably as soon as I'm done with this, and then I'm going to show the pictures, and I will open pre-orders, and I will leave the pre-orders open probably the whole time that we're away in Ireland, and then I will dye them when we get back from Ireland, and I will probably do it on a few different bases, and that will be going to the somebody commented on Facebook and told me the best charity to be going for, but it's like an abortion rights group. So we'll be doing that. Will be very soon, so keep your eyes open for that. And then I guess we have Media Watch. Alright, so Media Watch. I didn't really watch anything while I was away because, again, there was no Wi-Fi. I think had I known that there was going to be that little connectivity, I probably would have downloaded something onto my laptop, but I didn't know. I was naive. I was like, oh, well, even if there's no wired-in Wi-Fi, I'll definitely be able to get phone service. No phone service. Sometimes I'd be able to get WhatsApp messages if I stuck my arm out the window and, like, waved it around, but that was it. Just WhatsApp, though. No emails or texts or anything. I don't know why WhatsApp worked and nothing else did. I didn't really watch anything while I was away, so obviously when I got back I had to like binge my way through Game of Thrones to avoid being spoiled. It's relatively easy to not get spoiled when you have no internet, but once I got back I was like, danger. So I'll wait till the very end to talk about that in case there's anyone who hasn't seen it yet. You can bounce before I go into that. Have been watching a show called Gentleman Jack. It's an HBO/BBC show, and it's about Anne Lister, who is, they've coined her like the first modern lesbian. You can take issue with that if you're a historian, if you will. It's up to you. But anyway, the show's amazing. It's with Saran Jones, who is in Dr. Foster, and yeah, I'm gonna like just run away to the early 19th century, even though Anne Lister probably would have had terrible politics, and because she was a landowner, like wealthy landowner, she probably would have been like, who are you, peasant? So, yeah. But the show is really good. I highly recommend it. And I'm also now thinking, how awesome would it be to have a Gentleman Jack and a Doctor Who crossover? This is never going to happen. They're never going to give this to us ever. But if they did, how awesome would that be? Think of the flirtation. It would be great. I just keep thinking how great it would be. Never gonna get it. Never. Right, so I'm about to talk about Game of Thrones and the spoilers that happen at the end, so if you haven't seen it or don't want to hear it, then now is your time to exit. Right, Game of Thrones. That's about my reaction. I just feel like they ignored 7 and a half series of character development in favor of this, I don't know, whatever ending that was. I'm also not convinced that we're ever going to get the books to, like, see what would have happened without the show. I feel like they're too, like, intertwined now. And I think I remember, like, seeing them say, oh yeah, we know who's supposed to have the throne at the end, because, like, George R.R. Martin told them. So I'm like, well, maybe Bran being on the throne is what's supposed to happen, but I don't know. And, like, Arya's sailing into the west, and there's a lot of plot holes. You can look online if you're wanting to read about, like, all the plot holes and stuff that... Yeah, I mean... If you want to know more of my feelings about previous seasons, I did that video earlier on, like, before it started, about why I wasn't going to dye any more Game of Thrones yarn. With all of my point-by-point frustrations about the show and the direction that it's taken. So, I mean, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in, there's a video for that here on the channel. Yeah, it's over. I know that they're going to be doing, like, prequels and stuff. And you know what? I'll probably end up watching them, but, yeah, meh. That's what I think about that ending. I mean, right. I will say I'm really glad that Sansa's, like, Queen in the North. Good. I'm glad about that. Everything else was trash. It doesn't make sense. I'm not even going to go into it because I'll just talk for another hour about what didn't make sense. But whatever. I've seen it all now. And there you go. Whatever. Feh. Meh. If you are going to post spoilers in the comments, could you try and, like, nest them so they don't show up? Or write spoiler before, just in case. Just in case. I know it's been out for a few weeks now, but you never know. Alright. Or 2 weeks? Anyway, who knows. Alright, everyone. This has gone on long enough. I've been chatting at you for over an hour, which is much longer than I usually yammer at you, but I guess I had a couple of weeks of stuff to talk about. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on. With both our immigration thing and why I was in Italy and all kinds of stuff. And I'll be back next week with another podcast about who knows what. What do you want to see me talk about? Write it in the comments. And then on Saturday, we will be back with our normal Saturday night live stream. We'll be playing some new games. We're still fighting it out as to who's going to win, which game we're going to play. But both of them are, like, narrative-based, so you'll want to come in for that because it'll be cool. Like puzzles and solving, and we'll do some chatting. Also, we're going to be doing another big giveaway soon, so do keep your eyes and ears peeled for news on that. We haven't planned anything out specifically as of yet. It will probably be after Willen because everything's a little bit manic until we go now. I have, like, a whole bunch of storage boxes arriving today, and I'm so thrilled that I'll have boxes to put things in. Oh my god, my life is just yarn and boxes. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for that, and yeah, let me know what you want to hear me chat about next week, and I'll see if I can make it happen. And definitely come along for the Saturday night live stream. If you came along to the Nikki and Bonti live stream last Saturday, they were raising money for Amnesty International, and that's where we were. We wanted to stream live, but apparently our channel isn't eligible for mobile streaming. So, okay. Anyway, so if you came along to that, then thank you very much for taking part in the chat, and if you donated, then thank you for that as well. They raised over £1,800 for Amnesty International with their 8-hour Does It Brust live stream, which is absolutely amazing, and I'm so proud of them, and they worked really hard to make it a success. So, with that, I will bid you all a fond farewell, and I'm going to go rewatch Gentleman Jack for, like, the 3rd time.